Imagine a football team letting a defensive lineman kick all their extra points, or a baseball team using a utility player from the field in their permanent pitching rotation. It sounds crazy, but in the Premier Lacrosse League, the Philadelphia Waterdogs are trying to survive without one of the most important skill positions in all of sports, the face-off specialist. So far this season, the Waterdogs are drowning without one. They're 0-3 on the season and recently suffered back-to-back overtime heartbreakers during their homecoming weekend in Philly. The Dogs got smoked at the face-off stripe in each of those 2 overtime losses, including one against Maryland, where they literally lost all 31 face-offs. But before we dive into what we saw on the field last weekend, let's explain why first-year head coach Bill Tierney hasn't been dressing a face-off specialist. In 2023, the PLL made a rule change that shortened the shot clock after a face-off win from the usual 52 seconds down to 32 seconds. This put pressure on face-off specialists to not just win the draw, but also create early offense. Some teams found an advantage in using long poles at the face-off stripe so that when they lost, they could just harass the other team's fogo, create a turnover or a rush shot, and be rewarded with a full 52-second shot clock as opposed to the shortened 32. The Waterdogs, under former head coach Andy Copeland, devised this strategy and rode it all the way to an appearance in the 2023 PLL Championship. But in 2024, the PLL outlawed using long poles on faceoffs, and the result has been a resurgence of the faceoff specialist. The Waterdogs are the last team holding onto the no-fogo strategy in 2024, and Tierney is starting to feel the heat for it. After his team won less than 10% of their faceoffs through the first 3 games of the season, here's what the Waterdogs head coach had to say about his strategy.
If you look at your stats, I know everybody loves social media and everybody's a genius up in the stands. There were probably today, 31 faceoffs, something like that, and we gave away 31 faceoffs. I think they scored 3 or 4 goals in that first 32 possessions. So anybody that thinks that that's a bad strategy doesn't understand the game.
To give Tierney some credit, 10 of Philadelphia's 14 goals against Maryland came on a possession immediately after stopping the Whip Snakes in the 32-second shot clock. But the Waterdogs still gave the Whips 31 free possessions. And as Tierney mentioned, a few of those possessions came back to bite his team. 3 times, Maryland won the faceoff and scored in the 32-second shot clock. And one of those goals was a 2-pointer. That's 4 points that Philly gifted Maryland by losing the faceoff on purpose. In a game that went to overtime, those 4 points were the difference. This second half sequence was particularly backbreaking. With the score tied 7-7 early in the third quarter, Joe Nardella claims one of his 31 face-off wins, and the Whip Snakes jump right into their 32-second offense. Matt Rambo fires a skip pass to Zed Williams at the top of the formation, and Williams rips a 2-pointer to give the Whip Snakes a 9-7 lead. The 2 teams go back to the face-off stripe, and of course, Nardella wins it again. About 10 seconds later, TJ Malone is sweeping across the top and burying it lefty, giving the Whips a 10-7 lead with 8:17 left in the third quarter. That's a 3-goal swing in less than a minute. There's also a cumulative effect that comes with losing every faceoff over the course of an entire game, and that's the strain Philly is putting on its defense. The Waterdogs' possession percentage has been less than 50% in all 3 games so far this season, and in both games over their homecoming weekend, it bottomed out around 41%. That's a lot of time spent playing defense. And in a game that goes to overtime, Philly's face-off strategy is even riskier. It's like an NFL team losing the overtime coin flip on purpose. The Dogs learned that the hard way against the Cannons when 𝐓𝐇𝐄 𝐋𝐀𝐂𝐑𝐿, who had already scored a Hail Mary 2-pointer and a shorthanded goal in regulation, won the faceoff to himself in overtime and scored the game-winning goal. The good news for Philly is that help is on the way. Before the season, Bill Tierney explained the situation regarding rookie faceoff specialist 𝐓𝐇𝐄 𝐋𝐀𝐂𝐑𝐿, who was scooped up after the draft but hasn't taken the field yet for the Waterdogs.
The University of Denver is a trimester school, and they're still in school. He played in our scrimmage and did an outstanding job with that. Alex and I are great. He will be playing for the Waterdogs at some point or another.
Tierney is just buying time until his hand-picked faceoff guy is available, and he's had the misfortune of dropping 3 straight 1-goal games in the meantime. The Waterdogs will look like a different team as soon as Stathakis is in the lineup. This is pretty clear when you look at the league standings in terms of score differential. Denver, California, and Maryland all ranked behind Philly. The Waterdogs may have the worst record in the league, but they're almost certainly not the worst team in the league. In fact, in 2022, the Waterdogs started the season 0-3 and ended up winning the PLL championship. With that in mind, anything is possible for Philly this year, but it starts with winning a faceoff.